Hey folks, Matt here, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how to make an alternative game to the maze game style. You are this cat and there's going to be an enemy chasing you and you've got to zap it with something to defeat it. And it could be a little more fun than a maze game, a little more interactive. It might be a little tougher than a maze game, but the end result will be cool. Alright, so where I'm starting now is basically where we got from the first video, which is called Scratch Game 1 Getting Started. It's a 5-minute video that will show you how to build this and basically get your cat moving on the screen by using your arrow keys. If you're not at that point and you're totally confused, go back and watch that video first. Alright, so let's get started. Now, in order to get a good grade on this project, you need at least 2 or more sprites, 2 or more levels, variables, conditionals, loops, broadcast and receive, and all that good stuff. We're going to get to that in a series of 2 videos that'll get you to that point. So right now we've got our cat, we've got our controls, and what do we need? We need an enemy. So let's go over down here to choose a sprite and go ahead and pick an enemy. In this case, I'm going to pick, let's make it a dog. Classic enemy of the cat. Here we go. We've got a dog here on screen. Alright, so what we want to do is, just like our cat's code, we need an event handler, the very first thing. So let's go to the dog code. Let's go over here to events, and we need a when green flag clicked. The first thing we should do is tell our characters where they're going to start on the screen when the game begins. So right off the bat, I want to start the dog maybe all the way over here, and the cat maybe all the way over here. You can manually drag them anywhere you want on the screen, and as you do that, this block go to XY changes dynamically to be the exact coordinates of where the dog is. So when the green flag is clicked, if I drag this out, that will always start the dog right here on the screen. I'm going to do the same thing for the cat. I put my cat where I want him, and then this go to block is different from the dogs. It'll start the cat right here. I'm going to put that right up here at the top. Alright, now you can control using this code where the cat goes. We want the dog to always be chasing us. So go to control. We're going to pull out a forever loop, and the dog is constantly going to point towards sprite 1, which is our cat. He's going to point towards us always, and he's going to move, let's say, 1 step. So he will always be pointing towards us and moving 1 step. Now, watch what happens when we run this. Let's move him a little slower. I'm going to say 0.5, a half step. I am going to flip him vertically, which seems weird, but now the dog is always chasing us. Now, if I move around, do you notice the dog? He continues to face us and continues to follow us. So already we've got kind of a game going on here. Now I want to build a whole level. So I want to give these characters space to move. So I'm going to make them smaller. I'm going to go to looks, and the dog, I'm going to change him to a 50% size at the beginning of the game. Same with the cat. Set size to 50%. Now let's see. Alright, now we've got some room to move around, and there's our dog chasing us. Now, next step. I said this was a zap 'em game, so we're actually going to build something that we can throw at the dog to try and get him off our tail. That involves a third sprite. So let's say we're going to throw apples at the dog. Makes it easy. This apple's kind of big, so again, I'm going to create an event handler, green flag clicked, and I'm going to set the apple to be even smaller, maybe 20%. Let's see. There we go. Now, the apple's just sitting here, but I want to be able to click a button and throw this apple at the dog every time I click a key. How do we do that? So if I'm just resting here, I don't want to see the apple. We're going to hide the apple at the beginning of the game. Now, in order for me to throw an apple, I want to click a key. So I'm going to go to my cat, and I'm going to go to control, bring out a conditional if then statement, go to sensing, grab a key pressed block right here. And let's say when we press the space key, we want to fire this apple out. What's going to happen is we're going to need to broadcast a message to the apple to tell the apple to appear and head towards the dog, or head towards the direction we're facing. That involves broadcast and receive, and that is in our rubric for something you need to get a good grade on this project. So let's head over there. Go to Events, Broadcast Message. Let's put that in our conditional, and let's write new message. Let's call it Zap. So broadcast zap. We're going to place this into our forever loop. Not inside one of these conditionals, but at the bottom underneath the conditionals inside the forever loop. So now every time we press the space key, zap is broadcast. Right now nothing's happening. What do we want to happen? We want the apple to fly out of the cat. We want to throw that apple. So there's a few things we need to do. Let's go to the apple sprite. When I receive zap, this is a separate event that happens from green flag. The first thing we want to do is we want to send the apple, let's say the apple's out here, but it's invisible. We want to send the apple invisibly and instantaneously to the cat because we're going to throw it out. So we want to go to sprite 1. That's our cat. We want the apple to show. And then we want the apple to move away from us in the direction that we're facing. So if I'm facing this way, I'm going to shoot the apple this way. If I'm facing this way, I'm going to shoot the apple this way. So we've got to tell the apple to point in a direction. We'll change this later. And then we want the apple to move. We want it to move a certain number of steps, but let's go to control. Look at this repeat until block. We haven't used this yet in game design, but check this out, it's really useful. We can move 10 steps and repeat that until something happens. In other words, we're touching the edge of the screen. We can repeat that until we touch the edge of the screen, and then we can hide. Or we can repeat until we hit the dog. Now watch this. We'll add a conditional to this repeat until loop. If touching dog, something will happen. Now, we haven't developed this game far enough to have variables and energy or lives for our cat and our dog, but this would be a case where the dog would lose a life or lose energy or something like that. So that's actually going to go inside the repeat until. So the apple's going to move away from us in the direction we throw it until it's either touching the edge, or if it's touching the dog, then we want, again, the apple to hide, and then something else will happen. So it's basically a moment where we hit the dog. So let's make a new event, a new broadcast, and let's make a new message called hit dog. We're going to broadcast hit dog if we've hit the dog. And now we'll put that in when I receive zap. For our dog, when I receive hit dog, that means the dog has been hit and it's going to lose energy. Now this brings me to our next computer science concept that we're going to add to this game, which is variables. We need variables for things like time, score, energy, lives, etc. So let's make some variables. I'm going to head on over here to the variables menu, and we're going to make a variable called dog energy. Okay. And while we're at it, let's make a variable called cat energy. It's like how much energy we have left. Now at the beginning of every game, that's where we want to set these variables to their starting points. So at the beginning of, we're still in the dog's code, we're going to set dog energy, let's say 3. That's at the beginning. Now when I receive hit dog, we're going to change dog energy by -1. We're going to take a point away from the dog. And now the dog should lose points when we hit it with the apple. The cat, we added cat energy. In the beginning of the game, we want to set cat energy. 2. Let's give us 3 points as well. And now let's test this out. Green flag clicked. Dog is heading towards us. We can move the cat. Dog is going to follow us. Let's try throwing that apple. Look at that. I'm firing the apple at the dog, and every time I hit the dog, he loses a point. Now what happens if I fire the apple at the screen? It disappears at the edge. And if I hit the dog, he loses a point. Now the dog's at -8. What should eventually happen here? The dog should eventually go away when he hits 0. But at this point, we've got a pretty good functioning little game happening with a moving cat, a projectile that we fire out, the apple, and the dog, who is our enemy, who's chasing us. Now we don't have any levels yet, so we still need to build that up, and I'm going to do that in the next video because this video is already too long. But in order to get a good grade in this project, you will have to follow this next video to add some levels, and we're going to add another enemy as well. And then this should be a pretty cool game. If you want to turn this in for your final project after watching these, all you need to do is customize this and make it your own. Design your own levels, design your own characters. Change the dog and the cat and the apple sprites to something different. You don't have to do energy like this. You could do lives, you could do points, you could do score. There's a lot of ways you can customize it. But these are the basics, and if you're building this Zap game, I'll see you on the next video. Later.